So, head over there and help with a like and a subscribe. Now let's start with today's story. My name is Mark Everett. I'm 38 and have been married twice. From my first marriage, I have 3 children, an 8-year-old daughter and 2 sons, ages 7 and 5. I also have a 16-year-old stepdaughter. This is the story of how my first marriage fell apart and how I found redemption right within my own home. I met Emily Benson when I was 25. It happened by chance when I walked into the building where she worked. She was the receptionist at the information desk of an office complex filled with law firms. At the time, I was fresh out of college and just starting my career. That day, I was there to locate a particular law office to hear the reading of my maternal grandfather's will. He had passed away more than a year earlier but had left instructions that his will wouldn't be read until I had completed my degree in business management. Being a numbers guy, I'd always wanted to help him run his businesses. Sadly, he passed away during my senior year, before I could fulfill that dream. I arrived early, so Emily showed me to a waiting area, and as it was near her desk, we talked until my appointment time. I found her attractive, an interesting conversationalist, and funny. She related several stories of people who could not handle the suspense of waiting for the good, or the bad news being in a lawyer's offices. When the time came, I was escorted into the office of Matthew Smith, my grandfather's attorney, who would later become my own. Matthew greeted me warmly, mentioning that my grandfather and his father had been close friends and frequent golfing buddies. After we sat down, Matthew explained that I wasn't the only person specifically mentioned in the will, but there were conditions I had to meet before I could receive the full inheritance of $10 million plus all the properties left to me. I would immediately receive $1.5 million along with the real estate holdings, which I was expected to use to meet those conditions. One key requirement was setting up equal post-secondary education funds for my siblings, with each fund needing to exceed $150,000. My sister Judy, who was 14 at the time, was a straight-A freshman in AP classes, a no-brainer. My brother Brian, however, was a different story. At 17, he was a gearhead and as lazy as a stump unless he was working on cars. I asked Matthew if the funds had to be strictly for college, or if I could set up a technical school fund for Brian instead. Matthew clarified that the will simply stipulate that any unused portion of the fund would go to the recipient upon successful completion of their educational program. However, if they didn't use the money for schooling, they wouldn't see a single penny. I chuckled and said, Grandpa did that because he knew Brian was lazy but greedy. This way, he'd have no choice but to learn something. Another condition was that I had to live in Grandpa's house on the estate and use his housekeeper and cook for the next 5 years. Again, a no-brainer. It was a very big and very nice house. I had always loved staying there when visiting Grandpa. It did become my house, but they will say I could not keep it or live in it without those 2 ladies, and they were ladies. Clara, the housekeeper, was my age and had lived in one of the Goose houses all her life because her mother was the housekeeper before her. When I was a kid, Clara and I explored the big house and grounds. She was also a real doll who had married a very nice man and had a daughter, Casey, who was at that time 5 years old. Grandpa also left her a sum of money equal to 10 years of her salary if she stayed for at least 2 years after the reading of the will. Abigail, the cook, was not only magic in the kitchen but was health conscious. She lived in another guest house. The food was always tasty and not loaded with fats and salt. She was worth her weight in gold as our family had a history of heart disease. Not a problem. She was probably in her early 40s. She also had the same conditions as Clara and the same rewards. The groundskeeper and the security were at my discretion. I could keep them or get different ones. The groundskeeper got some money also. The groundskeeper, who was almost 60 years old, had told Matthew that he was not staying on after the new owner took possession. Matthew also recommended a different security company. So far, nothing seemed outrageous. So, I asked Matthew if there were any other conditions. He said yes if I get married before the residency requirement expired. I would need a prenuptial agreement that would not allow a gold digger to take any of the money. My grandpa was not against women. He just wanted to protect me from someone like my mother who took almost everything except the kitchen sink when she divorced Dad. I asked Matthew if there would be a problem with setting up a trust fund with the remaining estate and stipulating that I was to get a fixed yearly amount that could not be assigned by a divorce decree. Also, would it be possible for the entire estate, including the house and all of the other real estate, to be included in the trust? Matthew laughed and said, "Now I know why you were left the estate. That's very smart." I asked Matthew to investigate a few accountants that specialized in trust funds. He said he would. He asked if I wanted to set up one trust with 3 beneficiaries, or 3 separates. I told him that I would think about it, and let the accountant we agreed to know what I wanted. I then asked Matthew to go on retainer as my legal advisor and legal advocate if needed. I told him to take $25,000 out of the $2 million and to let me know when that ran out. I later decided to manage my own trust and set up the siblings' education trusts at $250,000. I also added to those trusts as time went on. I did not manage them for fiduciary reasons. He agreed to that, and we signed all of the necessary paperwork. Then Matthew handed me a check for over $1.9 million. I locked the check into my briefcase. Matthew then warned me that my mother was contesting the will as the only direct descendant. He said she really did not have a chance, but he opined that she was after a payoff. I laughed and said, "You mean the loving mother that abandoned my father with 3 kids and took all of the money my father had saved? The same one who screwed my dad's brother Jack behind Dad's back and swindled Jack out of a lot of his money? You mean the same one who falsely accused my father of sexually abusing my sister who was 5 at the time? That woman is not my mother. She is only the woman who gave birth to me." I continued, "I don't care if it costs me $15 million in legal fees defending the will. Her father formally and legally disowned her because of her money-grubbing ways. If she wants to fight it, let her. But please tell her that I will not willingly let her have a penny of that money. If I understand it correctly, since she was disowned, she has no legal claim. If she is trying to overturn the legal papers that disowned her, I am authorizing you to spend whatever is necessary to see that that does not happen. Oh, let her know that I will insist on any settlement include the stipulation that she has to pay all of my legal fees and court costs." Matthew smiled and said, "Your grandpa set aside some monies for both of those instances. I will let you know when we have to go before the judge and if we need more money." He then said something surprising. "You don't know it, but your grandpa convinced your dad and your uncle each swear out a fraud complaint against your mother. Those complaints will be brought up at the hearing of the disown case and the case contesting the will. He also gave them both some money before he died. It was equal to the money she defrauded them out of." He shook my hand and said, "Don't worry, your mother may delay the disbursements, but she won't be able to change them." On my way out of the building, I stopped to thank Emily for her help, and she and I talked until it was lunchtime. I asked her if she would like to join me for lunch, my treat. She agreed. Over lunch, I asked if she was in a relationship, and she said she was dating, but no one was the special one. I asked for and got her address and phone number, with the promise of a dinner date. I walked her back to the office building and said my goodbyes. I went to my bank, talked to the branch manager, and deposited the check into a brokerage account that was part of their services. It paid a decent interest rate and was very accessible. I explained all of the future plan will stipulate transactions. I called Emily that evening and asked when she would like to go to dinner. She said that the coming weekend would not work because she already had dates scheduled. She asked if I had a problem with waiting until the next weekend. I said it was not a problem as I had some studying to do for my new job, and this weekend would let me visit my family also. I visited my dad and my sister that weekend as Brian was in Center City for a car show. I told them what had happened at the attorney's office. They were very happy for me. Judy was ecstatic that Dad would not be burdened with any expenses for her college studies. I told Judy that if there was not enough in the fund to cover everything, I would make up the difference. When Brian came home Sunday night, I got an entirely different reaction. He was very angry. He said, "Why can't I just have the money now? And why do you get so much more than us? That old bastard just loved the way you sucked up to him. I bet you even gave him a BJ?" Before I could get to him, Dad stood up and slapped him so hard he took 2 steps back just to keep from falling down. Dad then screamed in Brian's face, "Don't you ever talk to anyone in my house like that. Even a guest does not deserve that kind of treatment. You either apologize or go hang out with your greasy-handed friends. I love you, but right now I don't like you," Brian said with some vehemence. "Okay, fine. I don't need any money from that old son of a bitch. When I get out of school, I will go into the military. You can all kiss my butt." With that, he stormed back out to his car and burned rubber all the way down the street. We did not hear from him or about him until a couple of months later he was arrested for drunk driving and minor in possession of alcohol. When Dad asked me to go with him to bail Brian out, I agreed without hesitation. When we got there, Brian looked like death warmed over. He was also very contrite. Brian apologized to Dad and to me and asked if he could come home. Dad said of course he could. I offered to have him come to the estate until school was finished if he wanted. Brian looked at me like I had a big snotty booger on my forehead. "Why would you do that after how I acted and talked to you?" I was a complete a-hole. I know I apologized, but those words must have hurt. I said, "Brian, you are my brother. What you said to me was said in anger. I accept your apology. If you decide to go into the military, your education trust money will be there when you leave your service time. There is no time limit. I know you want to start an auto service shop. I will give you a zero-interest loan to start a shop. All you will need to do is do your service time, get the training for certification on whatever parts of the cars you want to specialize in. That will count for your education goal. Hell, if you want to start a dealership or a used car lot, I will partner with you. Brian was stunned and had very wet eyes when he grabbed me in a bear hug. Thank you, big brother. I called a family meeting and explained all of the other conditions of the will. Then I told them that their education money was guaranteed, but other than what I already have received, there are a lot of conditions to meet. My date with Emily went very well. We went to an upscale restaurant and had a great dinner. The conversation was very general, likes, dislikes, goals, and other things like that. After a brief lull in the conversation, she asked the question I could sense she wanted to ask. She said that I did not seem to be someone who needed an attorney. She politely asked if I minded her asking what I had been there for. She said that when I came out and talked to her, I seemed distracted but not unhappy. I laughed. Now I know why you went out with me. Don't you know that curiosity killed the cat? I had to talk to an attorney about my future. I was slightly distracted because I had to make some plans to secure that future. Emily said. For some reason, there was no gossip in the building about why you were there, and that fact made you an item of interest. I did not mean to pry, but the interest got to my nosy side. I said, Emily, I want to get to know you better, but now I am worried. Client-attorney privilege means there should not be any gossip about anyone who deals with an attorney. I asked that if someone tells you anything about my visit, please tell me. She said she would, and as I was saying goodnight, we made a date for the following week. I asked Emily if she thought she would like to go to a live theater performance of The Music Man that the local theater group was putting on. She thought that was a great idea, so we made the date. We dated for a couple of months when Emily informed me that she had quit dating anyone but me, and then she said, Mark, I stopped all dates except you because I am falling in love with you. You are polite, considerate, interesting, and fun. I have never found anyone who is all of those things. I also sense that you have some serious feelings for me. I hope I am not mistaken. I was stunned, so I thought for a few seconds before I said, yes, I have very serious feelings for you. I love you. I have always been exclusive. I want to continue an exclusive relationship until you can say you love me or tell me to. Go to hell in a handbasket. I am willing to wait as long as you are uncomfortable with making either statement. Emily looked to be stunned but said, I want that too. We dated for a few more weeks and on St. Valentine's Day, I proposed and Emily accepted. The court case was scheduled to go to court in May. My mother's attorney was informed about the fraud complaints, and the entire thing went away because the lawyer for my mother quit and she stiffed his bill when word of that came out. No other lawyer would take the case. Mother was not pleased. We made plans for a Christmas wedding and lo and behold, Emily wanted a prenup. I said okay, but I would not sign it without a review by my attorney. She said okay. When I got the proposed prenup, Matthew said it was fair as it called for the protection of all pre-marriage assets. It also stated in the event of a divorce, the accumulated marital assets would be split equally regardless of the cause of the divorce. Matthew also informed me that Emily had made a mistake because while she is receiving a large annuity from a trust fund, the bulk of the trust did not come to her until after 10 years of marriage, or she was 35 years old. I said make counterproposal that all post-marriage assets except the trust funds would be forfeit if either party was proven to have committed adultery, domestic abuse, or convicted of a felony. Matthew asked why I wanted that clause in there. I then related our first date and the question Emily had asked about the reason for my first visit to his office. I told him what I had told her and mentioned that apparently the building had a gossip circle that let out information on client visits. Matthew was furious and said he would look into that. Then he asked if Emily had ever brought it up again. When I told him no, he looked visibly relieved. Emily signed the prenup and the wedding was on Christmas Eve. For months later, she informed me we were going to be parents. 7 months later, Elizabeth Emily Everett was born. 15 months after that, Anthony Everett arrived, and just over 2 years later, Franklin Everett arrived. That was enough, and we both agreed. I got snipped. Things went along great for the next few years. Then Emily got her trust fund. After that, our sex life took a long vacation. There was no intimacy. I tried to talk to Emily, but she just got angry and said, so, I don't feel in the mood when you do. Then she added, go screw a goat, a hooker, or the bedpost for all I care. I want to live a life without 3 crying brats and with a richer husband. Scott can do that for me. I want a divorce. You can have the kids, the house, and the goddamn job you have. I was stunned, angry, and hurt. I shouted to her, who the hell is Scott? Are you screwing him already? What will you do if he gets you pregnant? File your damn divorce. Just don't ask for anything except the clothes you have. That means all of your jewelry, your car, and your summer cottage are going to be mine. You just admitted to adultery. Do you remember the prenup you demanded I sign? I will enforce it completely. Pack your crap and leave." Wisely, Emily just shut up. She left the room and went into the master suite, and I could hear drawers being opened. I was now angry and decided to get one last shot in before she left. "I will have a divorce lawyer draw up the papers, and you damn well better sign them. When you're done packing, I will call you a cab as you will not be taking a car. When I can, I will have the locks changed, but not later than this weekend. I will also cancel the lease on your car. As of the end of the month, you will not be on my health insurance, nor will you be the beneficiary of my will or my trust. I know about the trust money you have already received, so you will not be destitute. Just get out." Emily had recoiled when I started shouting at her, and when I finished, I walked out of the bedroom. As I was walking down the hall, I heard her crying. A short time later, she came out and quietly asked if it was all right if she left some of her clothes because she did not have room in her suitcase for all of them. By then I was a little calmer, still angry, but calmer. I told her she could come back and get the rest as long as she told me ahead of time. I added I would not let her show up with Scott or any non-family man, but anyone else could help. The papers were served, and I discovered that Scott was the owner of a string of ladies' boutiques. He got his money the old-fashioned way. He inherited it. He also had a reputation as a pump and dump kind of man. He had been named in 2 divorces as correspondent. I tried to tell Emily, but she blew me off. She signed the papers, including relinquishing complete child custody to me. She did not even ask for any visitation. I relinquished all claims on her trust. The divorce was final and low, and behold, Scott found a different screw buddy. He also managed to raid her trust fund money. He did not get much, but it showed Emily the man was a skunk. I found out from Emily's parents that she was devastated. She felt she had been made a fool of. She was also pregnant. As I was still hurt, but the kids missed their mommy, so I told them that if Emily wanted, she could see the kids at their house. All she had to do was promise not to bring a man with her. Well, Emily never asked to see the kids, had an abortion, and left town. We have not heard from her since. Scott ran into an angry husband and was killed along with the guy's wife, and then the guy killed himself. I had received the entire estate and was making do with my life when several events changed everything. Clara's husband died in a car accident. She was devastated but wanted to stay as my housekeeper. Judy graduated from college at 20. Then she was hired by my brother who needed a business manager for our new car dealership. Yup, the lazy bum spent 4 years in the Navy where he managed to get a college degree. When he was discharged, he put his trust money into a car dealership. Clara moped around the house for almost 2 years after her husband died. I asked her if it would help if she and Casey moved into the main house. She said she would give it a try. They moved into the 3-bedrooms, mother-in-law apartment on the 2nd floor. It seemed to help, and Casey told us she wanted to be the resident babysitter if I start dating. She was 12 now and very mature for her age group. I laughed at the thought and saw an expectant look from Clara. Talk about not seeing the forest for the trees. Here in my own house was a lady that not only was my best and longest friend, but someone I had strong feelings for. I asked her to go out to dinner, and she accepted. We dated, the dinner was great, and we went on many more dates, and after 18 months we got married. Casey was the maid of honor and Judy was a bridesmaid. Brian was my best man and Matthew was a groomsman. All 3 of my kids were ring and flower children. Clara was the most beautiful bride ever. I was probably somewhat prejudiced because she is, as I said, also my best friend. There is recovery from death, divorce, and hurt. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.